So now, did you understand the rest of what was going on here beyond Lord Acton? So after that, we were reading Hayek, and then we were reading Madison. And so when I started with this, I had these at the end of 607, and then I tapered off of this and put this into Power and Influence, 619. Bits and pieces I've moved over from there because it was a more appropriate home. But I want you to kind of get a feel for what he's saying. Did you understand why Hayek was there or why Madison was there? Somebody just summarize it, and then I'll get to the bottom line of why I had this here. Do you remember? Did you understand that much to be able to kind of summarize it?
It's hard to understand, for me hard.
It was hard to understand. Hayek is a Nobel Prize winning economist, and he was writing what he wrote about after the Nazis to try to warn against totalitarianism.
Right.
Right? So that's what he's talking about here.
I thought it was interesting, he said you can have a society that is socialist and doesn't have to necessarily be bad.
Right, he did say that.
Like in democracies, I don't know. Like he was kind of trying to.
That's not his point. His point is warning you against collectivism over the individual. Why? Because what happens? When we say that the individual doesn't matter and it's only the group that matters, then we're going to have a problem, because that's going to help those in power aggregate power to themselves and accumulate it, and then they're going to destroy you with that, or anybody that gets in their way. Because power takes on this life of its own, that people that are after power want, the precious, right? They just want more of it. And so that's where he's going with this. So he's talking about the totalitarianism, and let's see. So they demand a quick and determined response, get things done. They prepare their followers are prepared to voluntarily submit, and then if they get enough of a movement, then they'll make everybody else submit. Right? It doesn't matter what the majority agree on. It's what is the largest single group whose members are large enough to force it on others.
Yeah.
Now, so beware. Now there's a dangerous way of doing this, but then you also hear, particularly on the left, a lot of talk about community. We have to do this. I have to force this on you because it's in the name of community. Look, if something's good, you don't have to force something on somebody, right? So be careful with that, because that's usually the way that people accumulate that power to themselves if they're trying to force it on you. 3 reasons why they constitute the worst elements. They find a high degree of uniformity of outlook. They will need the support of the gullible and the docile, and it's easier to agree on a negative program than a positive program. So it's easier to say, for example, in politics now, I don't want Obamacare. Yeah, I don't want Obamacare. I don't want Obamacare. But to say, hey, this plan of un-Obamacare will work. No, I don't like your plan. No, I don't like your plan. Right? It's a hard thing to agree on a positive thing, but it's very easy to be opposed to something negatively. Right? Yep. Community is sometimes a veil. It opposes a greater degree of similarity of outlook than actually exists. Right? A community is something that when you're voluntarily in it, you shouldn't have to be forced to be voluntarily in it. Collectivism on a world scale is unthinkable. So theoretically on equalitarian principles, but practically socialist leaders become nationalists, right? The 1%. We talk about, take it from the 1%. That college kid that's wearing, that has we are the 99%. No, you're part of the 1% because you're in America, right? Think about the rest of the world, and if you apply that same thinking on a global standard, they'd be picking your pockets too. When you place the community before the individual, the person is only respected as a member of a group. But no, the person is a person, not an object as part of the group. The person is only respected when working for common ends, and dignity is derived from the community. No, it's not inherent. But that's not reality. Never place the community over the individual's rights. The competitive free market minimizes this through decentralization, and that's his point. That's where he's winning his Nobel Prize on two ideas. One, that, and the second is an anti-hubris humility, and that is knowledge. Leaders do not have enough knowledge to centralize power and make all the decisions themselves. Now, that works within nations, but it also works within an organization. The president or CEO of your organization does not have all the knowledge that he needs in order to function. So you need decentralization throughout the organization, where we have, like Ryan was talking about, he's the subject matter expert about that thing. The CEO doesn't have that knowledge. No way can he have all that knowledge to be able to be the subject matter expert on everything. So it works here with individuals, also works in organizations. Two common features of every collectivist system is the need for a commonly accepted system of ends and a desire for maximum power to achieve those ends. In organizations too, you'll see people try to accumulate power to themselves. And then if they do that, they have this idea that the end justifies the means because it's serving the organization or their program or plan. Once you admit that individuals are merely a means to serve the ends of the higher entity called society, then you have all these other problems, and these are necessary consequences of that. And what he's doing is ultimately talking about the same thing that we just talked about, where people are objects. He's just doing it in a social, national context rather than in the organizational context. But people can never be treated as objects. If they are, that's where you have things like Holocausts. Why the worst get on top? Good, bad men, since the supreme leader who alone determines the ends, his instruments must have no moral convictions, no ideas about right and wrong may be allowed to interfere with the collective good, and good men will be repelled. Bad men who like the taste of power will rise and enforce the will of the leader. So based on your reading of Hayek, everything that we talked about, what causes the worst men to get on top? They're chasing power, right? They don't mind having no morality or chasing that on the backs of having less morality. What else? What else did you take from that? The way that we operate and look at people has changed to people being objects, right?
Look at
All
Syria.
yeah, and it depends on. So I'm recording this right now, and if we're recording this now, maybe it'll be Syria now, maybe it'll be another country somewhere in the Middle East next time, maybe it'll be somewhere else, but it's constantly happening. But the same theme is there. Can't treat people as objects, right? What's a key to diffusing that? Decentralization, right? That's taking, not allowing the concentration of power, because what we know from Lord Acton about power corrupting, right? Fair? Yes? Okay, so now this brings us to Madison. Where Madison's talking about this, and when he during the Constitutional Convention, what is government but the greatest of all reflections of human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. It's true, but we're not. A number of citizens who are united and actuated, factions. Factions are a number of citizens who are united and actuated by some common impulse or passion of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens. That is what he means by a faction. And people would say, well, factions, they're bad. Actually, there's certain safety in factions because there's not enough power for everybody to gang up on others. So the more factions, the more diffused we are, it's almost better. Look at the difference between a 95% Catholic country beating up on that small 5% of Protestant Huguenots. Look at the difference between that and what happens when you have a multiplicity of different Protestant sects that are all like, hey, like we're 16% Baptist, and we're 13% Methodist, right? And we're 12% Lutheran, and we're whatever percent Catholic, and we're right. When you have that, there's a much more equal playing field, and that's the way that Madison's going to look at it. That the fusion of power. 2 ways to cure a faction: remove the causes or control the effects. The two methods of removing the causes are to destroy liberty, and that's worse than disease. We don't want to destroy liberty. And the second one is impractical. Give everyone the same opinion. You can't do that. Okay? The latent causes of faction are thus sown in the nature of man. The beauty of the Founding Fathers is they understood the men's heart is the issue. They came from a fairly biblical worldview, and so they're still thinking in these kind of terms. In a large society, there are more factions, so it's less likely for the majority to form and trample the rights of others to act in unison. Okay, so checking factions, enlightened statement. This is one of the best lines in the entire thing of all the. So my PhD, my dissertation was on the leadership assumptions of American statesmen during the Constitutional Convention and ratification debates. That means what were the Founding Fathers thinking about leadership as they were framing the Constitution and arguing for its ratification. Does that make sense? Best line that I've seen in this whole thing: enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm. That's true. We can't hope that a leader is just gonna be benevolent. So the system has to be strong enough to withstand whatever kind of weirdo we might put in power. Right?
Yep.
And in the last election, we had either this weirdo or that weirdo. I mean, that was really at the test. Right? So it's gotta be able to hold this one or that one. I mean, you really couldn't win. If you're arguing that your guy was bad and our guy was good during the last election, you're not thinking. Okay? What was Madison saying about leadership through this? Well, these factions, diffuse these factions, take away power, don't centralize power, and there's a certain safety in that. It's very similar to what Hayek was saying. What was he saying about the nature of man? It's in our hearts. What protection does Madison find in human nature? He would say things, well, I don't know if I want to do that. He would say things though like, you know, we're gonna set up a system where we're gonna give him power, and then we're gonna have him watch him, and then we're gonna have him watch him, then we're gonna have her watch him. Right? That's essentially what they were doing. We're setting up the system. Do you remember Schoolhouse Rock?
Yep.
I like this, so I'm gonna play it just because I can.
In less than 15 minutes, I had saved more than 50.
Yeah, we're not gonna watch the ad though. Anybody not know Schoolhouse Rock? Some
I've never
younger
heard of
folks?
it. I've heard of it.
I know.
I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of Schoolhouse Rock?
I don't.
Oh, that's
really-
sad.
I don't sit
Your
in
body
front
grows
of the TV.
big.
Okay, so this was from like the 70s and 80s.
To learn.
Cause knowledge is power.
It's Schoolhouse Rocket, the chip on the block of your favorite schoolhouse rock. I'm just a bill.
So this is the process of a bill being made. It's like the worst system for actually getting things done.
Whew. You sure got
Right,
to climb a
but
lot
there's
of
a reason.
steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." And he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will, but today I'm still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm gonna live now. I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what
Then I
happens?
go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes! I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign, and if he signs me then I'll be a law. I hope and pray that he will, but today I'm still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By that time, it's very unlikely that you'll become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
He signed your bill, now you're a law.
Oh, yes!
Okay, so,
That's awesome.
I remember that.
do you remember that? So, that's a convoluted process of making a
Your
law.
body grows big.
Your mind.
Stop that. Okay, that's a convoluted process. Why do we go through that convoluted process?
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances, good, but why checks and balances? Separation of powers, why?
So one person doesn't have.
So we don't concentrate power too much, right?
And it doesn't push immediate action.
Right. Okay, checks and balances. The great security consists in giving each department the power to resist the encroachments of the others. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. Gouverneur Morris in the ratification debate said the demagogues must be bribed with the loaves and the fishes. And what he was saying was, we know that we're going to get petty tyrants in power, and we must bribe them with good behavior. You can stay in office as long as you're not bad to us, right? You can stay in the office. You can have these perks that you like as long as you don't do bad things. But what he's saying is we're going to have demagogues, right? But we must bribe them. The great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and then in the next place, oblige it to control itself. That's the harder part. Divide the legislature, there's different modes. The executive gets a veto. The federal and state governments are two different layers. And so it looks like this. And the legislative branch can check the executive branch by not passing a law. The executive can check the legislative with a veto. And the executive can check the judicial branch by who they appoint ultimately into those positions. And the judicial branch can check the legislative branch with what? By declaring a law unconstitutional, right? Or declaring an action unconstitutional. So everybody can check everybody else. That's intentional. It's built into that. It's not built for speed. It's not, and what do we say? Oh man, they don't get anything done. Good! What did Mark Twain say? No man's liberties are safe while the legislature's in session? Right? Okay? And then you divide it even further with your city and county and your state government and federal government all having different layers of that. Why? Because we don't want to empower any one group of government to have all power over you. Okay? So divide and arrange several offices in such a manner that each may be a check on the other. Why? What's the point? Not concentrating power. Right? What we know is that power corrupts and we don't want it to be in too much hands. By the way, while I'm on this, leaders. The leaders that seem to stay out of trouble the best are those that welcome accountability. They seek out accountability. They want a board to tell them that something is out of bounds or whatever. They don't want it to be completely unfettered. If they want to be completely unfettered, that's danger. Okay? Are the principles similar in business? Yes. Leadership plus power is danger. This is in bright red in bold for a reason, so you should be writing that down. Leadership plus power is danger. Danger for you and danger for the people that you lead. So let's tie everything that we've talked about all semester together. We talked about those secular leadership articles in the very beginning. We talked about servant leadership in the servant leadership training course. We talked about biblical servant leadership and the differences there. We talked about the steward leader. We talked about the leadership challenge, a tale of three kings, leadership and self-deception, and all that means this: leadership plus power equals danger. That's the big takeaway here. And you want to be aware of it. It's not necessarily, but there's danger there. And the antidote is humility. You get humility by what? You said it earlier. Staying close to God. Right? Let's talk about the endurance. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's look at your presentation before we do that.
Documentary?
Yeah, your documentary. Got the zip drive or something?
Yes. Do you have room for it?
I hope so.
It's Colin Powell.
Colin Powell. Hasn't shown up yet.
No.
Give it a moment.
I forget the name of it. In the folder, it's Colin Powell documentary. And that's the video.
All right. like it so far.
Yeah.
Back up, not now. Converting,
I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know either.
It's probably because you can do it on a Windows computer.
Yes.
And this is a Mac,
That's a
right?
Mac, so
Yeah.
it's gotta translate it to whatever that Mac language is or something.
You can probably pull it up on,
Macs are snobby about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Cause you can always sign in your YouTube.
That's
if
going,
we had
I
to.
can see it moving.
Yep.
It's moving. In the meantime, does anybody want to comment about anything that we've gone over as we're tying everything together? From the articles that we started with, the servant leadership training course, to the steward leader, to leadership and self-deception, to the leadership challenge.
You know, I guess a minivan thing, if you like look at China right now
Mhm.
or Russia,
Oh, yeah. Oh, with the tariffs?
you know, well, they're taking it out, like they're trying to remove God from anything to do with,
Oh.
and say you should be reliant on the government.
Well, that's exactly what every totalitarian
Yeah.
organization, they cannot. From Rome, that persecuted Christians, they couldn't tolerate Christians
Yeah.
that don't have to rely on them.
Yeah. And there, if you watch now with it going to a singular, and it's all about the power, you know, where the president of China is gonna be, no one watching him. At the same time, they are removing everything that has to do with anything like God, morals, values. They're changing the values of, we as the government are taking care of you, we meaning me, as the
Yeah.
president.
They're also going back to the system where the current guy in charge can stay there as long as he wants.
Yeah.
He's taken singular power, and that's what his move is right now.
Yep.
So you've heard the line, follow the money, from, you know, Watergate era kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Follow power. When people concentrate power or they want to distribute it, follow that, because that will tell you a lot about what's going on with them.
Yeah.
When somebody is in a position where they can accumulate it or push it out, see what they do with it. That'll tell you a big story. What else? We've got time. It takes a while to convert, apparently.
Well, there was, I'm trying to remember when exactly today it was, but you mentioned talking about challenging individuals, but at the same time, not giving them too much, or like not making sure that the house doesn't fall apart.
Okay.
And I think that's something that I can still constantly need to,
Finding the balance.
yes, that's probably one of my biggest struggles as a leader.
Okay.
Either, and then maybe I'm overconscious or about it, like I think about it too much maybe.
Okay.
I think that's something that just stood out to me today even.
Okay. Anybody else?
I don't think I like the power part of leadership.
You don't like power?
I don't enjoy it.
So a leader needs to be able to wield power, but he should probably do it a lot less frequently than leaders do, because a lot of people get into that position and they like the taste of it. And that is frightening to me when they like the taste of it. I much prefer what you just said. I want leaders to find it like, I don't wanna have to wield this, but I will for the good of the people involved, but I don't like it. Earlier, as we were breaking up and going to take the break, I was talking about, some people just come to power, they get that taste, and then they become a different person. Right?
Yes.
There's something weird about that. I mean, it becomes like a drug.
I was about to say drugs, alcohol, all that.
Yep. There's something about being able to tell other people what to do that is just somehow something that people begin to crave when they get into that position. And you have to fight that, because what do we learn in the last class? No one likes to be told what to do, no matter how right you might be.
Yes.
Okay, so you gotta remember that. What else? Are you tying it all together, thinking through stuff?
It's pretty fundamental, I think, but I think I need to constantly remind myself that leadership is a skill that can be learned by anyone.
Mhm.
It's not, leaders aren't born with it. Leaders can grow into what they can be. So, especially as someone who works in education with younger people, and I want to see them as leaders, I shouldn't favor some people over the other, and just think that some people are just more.
Yeah, some people come to you more refined, and they had more experience in high school when they get to you.
Mhm.
Right. It's good.
I like the 80% rule you talked about it last class, because especially like with my change project for the other class, like at least I know if I'm improving,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm doing good, or if I'm 80% or better, I'm still doing a good job.
Yep.
I'm still hung on that relationship with followers and the trust factor, because I'm thinking ahead a little bit to next week's class.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trusting that all these committees have done their part, because I know I've done my part, you know, when it comes to the other project and the other class that we have to present in 2 weeks for the 610 class. And, you know, they meet on Monday nights, and I don't get to go to any of those meetings, so I
Sure.
kind of feel left out. I mean, Kendra will send us an email and that kind of stuff, but I'm trusting in our class leader to provide the information, and that we're all,
So I've seen some done
You know,
well, and I've seen
every-
some done poorly, and it
So-
strikes me like they're on the right track. But
You know.
you can usually see, if you know what to look for, whether a leader is, like I said, that fast forward rewind kind of thing. If you see this, you usually get that.
yeah, I mean,
And-
things have gone pretty good, but you know how it is, you hate to leave some really important decisions on one person or on other people that you can't reach out and touch as easily. I don't know, that's the only way I know how to explain it,
Sure.
so.
Okay.
I'm caught on another part, going back to, Mr. Hunter in the servant leadership, where he describes that approximately 10% of the population or something along those lines cannot be influenced by good leadership. And then the best thing you can do is get them out of your organization, so that you don't have to impose all these rules on the people.
Right,
that
because you're
are
weighing
influenced.
them as opposed to the good of everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bulk.
That
Right.
sticks out to me.
Ike's friend was a good friend, his former roommate, but he's gotta weigh that against everybody else.
Yep.
Okay, when you look at these, do they all flow together well,
Definitely.
come together? I mean, they're, to my mind, they're put in such a way that if this precedes that, which precedes that, which precedes that, it builds on each other and helps you get a clearer picture of what we're trying to do. Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Anything particularly your favorite or least favorite?
The servant leadership
Yeah.
was something I really enjoyed.
Hunter?
I
Yeah,
have
that's
to
good
agree
stuff.
with
Is
him
that,
on
is
that.
that's the audio?
The audiobook.
Yeah.
Audio book, yeah, I gotta keep track of which one's which. Yeah, that was good. That was
Yep.
very good. I've listened, I think, a couple of times now.
The difference between power and authority.
Yeah.
And that's where I made the decision when we got to that part. So that's going in class.
Yep.
That was good.
Don't screw up from here, you're going
Good.
back, you're going into my class.
Did you change the curriculum very much from like one
I have.
class to the next?
Did you
or-
have the servant leadership training course in there, or was it the Blanchard?
We had Blanchard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
I'd love if you could send me the link for that.
Yeah.
I don't know how often you update and change.
No, I do update it, it just, sometimes it takes a while to sub this in or sub that out. I'm very careful, because there's a lot there, and I don't wanna add more without taking, and I don't wanna take.
'Cause it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all,
It's
honestly, this is my
pretty-
favorite material of anything that I teach.
Okay.
Now, I wrote the textbooks in the other classes, you know.
Right, as I know, yeah.
And so that's a hard admission, but that's just great stuff, it's medicinal.
I was, yeah, something like that for this class would be good with, once you get this refined, like all these little, I call them loose articles, all these, if you can kind of put all that together in one, another book of yours, so to speak,
No.
or?
No, because they're not mine, I can't put them together.
Copyright.
Okay.
It's
Well,
not-
yeah,
it's
well,
not
I know
mine.
that, I know.
It's not
where
mine to
that-
compile like that.
I see.
I'm thinking back to another passage that Mr. Hunter described, how leadership might not be available to you if you have a personality disorder such as narcissism. Or some of those things, and here you were talking about a psychopath just doesn't care.
Yeah, no,
About
that's
people
right.
getting hurt.
That's right. That makes me worried when I see somebody who doesn't care. And there's different levels or gradations about it, but
Yep.
it doesn't give you warm fuzzies.
No, you know, and like I said, I've come to conclude that what people really want, tell me if this is true if you see this is true or not, because I could be wrong, but I've come to conclude that what I think people want most from their leader is that you care about me and that you're looking out for my interests. You're not gonna just throw me under the bus. I do want you to be honest. I do want you to have integrity. I do want you to have a vision. I want you to have all those other things in place. But at the end of the day, I wanna know that you're not gonna just dispose of me just because you just, you know, because I'm quick and easy to dispose of so that you look good. Am I wrong?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, that's been my conclusion, and this is, you know, I started studying this in 1998. The beginning of my organizational leadership program. And I've looked at it before with my other degrees, my undergrad and my master's, but when I first started really intently focusing in on just leadership, and in that about 20 years-ish time, yeah, I mean, that really is what sticks out most, is that's what I want. I get, so yeah, some of my examples are outside business, because leadership's a transferable thing, right? It can be in business or outside, military, government, wherever. Nonprofits, you name it. But I understand if I'm part of the army and my life has to be sacrificed for the good of the whole, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. But in business, that's generally not, you know, the case. But if you're just trying to be efficient and make your name, and throw me out, and I have to take care of my family, you know, I mean, if that's what you're doing, I'm not sure that I really trust you. It would be one thing if you're looking at, you know, how can I redeploy him? I can be more efficient by tightening up, and we don't really need him here, but where can I move him so that we can, right? Or how can I help him get to some other place? But if if it's just, nope, sorry, you're out, that's really showing everybody else that that's what's gonna happen to you.
You don't care about him.
Right, if I don't care about John, and I do that to him, what's that say to you?
It says you don't care about the organization.
That's
because
right.
You're not letting your organization take advantage of where he could be better.
That's right.
Instead, we're spending more money hiring somebody else and then training them.
You just gotta rearrange those seats on the bus.
Yeah, and so,
Find the
and
right
thinking in
fit.
terms of
Yeah.
alignment and rearranging the seats on the bus,
Yep.
where can we put that person? Now, it could be that that's not your true calling, and then, you know, we need to figure out how to amicably depart, but that's different than, I'm just trying to be efficient, because management is legitimately being efficient, right? But just to dispose of a person,
Treat them well.
Yeah.
Treat them
There's-
well and give them something to where you're not just
Encourage.
throwing them off of a cliff.
right,
See, the
Give them a parachute.
The six of us, technically seventh with Arlene,
yeah,
all jumped on the bus and we're going down the road, whatever direction he takes us. And then throughout the course of the 12, 14 weeks, we've kind of had to rearrange.
yeah, and that's how you should have to do it.
Yeah.
Who should be in what seat, and we're just,
Yep.
now we're, and you'll see it here, Dr. Gerdes, when you see this.
Good. What's, go ahead.
I was gonna say, why don't you pull it up on YouTube?
I can send you the link.
You have it on YouTube?
Yeah.
I'll say that this has been an impressive process with our group. It seems like we've actually.
Yeah, you've gelled pretty well. I mean, I don't know what the final product will look like yet.
But it seems like we've actually been able to properly utilize our own unique strengths without stepping on each other.
Good.
Yeah.
Tell me in the meantime, while he's pulling up on YouTube and sending me the link, tell me what of these grabbed you the most. The first leadership article is the first day, hunter servant leadership, how we talked about biblical servant leadership, or what it means to actually be Christian about it. The steward leader, leadership challenge, Tale of Three Kings, leadership and self-deception. What of those things grabbed you the most?
Servant leadership.
Okay, what about you?
I think I like the leadership challenge, I guess, because I can relate to it a little bit more, and I can, it's right here, but I do like the leadership challenge, the audio CDs as well. Those two were my top two favorites. This one and then the audio leadership challenge.
Okay. Did you send that?
Almost.
Okay. Because that's taken a long time to convert.
Yeah, it is.
We're past the 50
Okay.
yard line.
What do you like the most?
Well, what grabbed me the most
Yeah.
was leadership and self-deception.
Yeah,
'Cause
that,
even if it wasn't personally for me,
Yeah.
like I could recognize things. and
even
help
if you're not in the
others.
box, you can help other
Right.
people with their issues, because they got lots of them.
Exactly, yeah.
Leadership and self-deception, I told you about this, right?
It's a
Like,
good book.
I read that
It's
on
good
Saturday
too.
at Barnes and Noble, and I was like,
Yeah.
I wanna go home and apologize to my wife.
It's like, ouch.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
it is.
The audiobook,
Just
the
a-
servant leadership. Or the servant leader.
Yeah.
When it comes to the being in the box part, there's a key takeaway that I got from that book as well, is you gotta recognize people that are persistently going to choose to stay in the box no matter what.
That's true.
And make sure that you and everybody else can do their best not to get poisoned by them
That's true.
or sucked in.
Did you send it to DGERDES@CSUNIV?
Yes. It was the first.
Because I got no new messages. Okay? Did you say? What about you, John?
I like the steward.
The steward leader?
Yeah, it's just,
I can
made me
forward it,
think
I
a
got
lot-
mine
a
over.
lot more.
The steward leader, I found that, I was like, that book has to go in this class.
Yeah.
There was no two ways about that. The reframing of holding it loosely, and it's just so right.
Yep.
Now, if you get this right now, hopefully later on, you don't fall down those stairs as you go up the ladder, but there's just,
Maybe you can try.
there's just
Yeah.
something powerful about it.
Oh, let me see that.
Let's see here.
I'm checking for mail and I'm not seeing it come up yet.
Yeah, I just sent it to you, so.
Thank you. My phone says it's queued, but
Alright,
not
you just
sent.
sent, so maybe if you refresh now.
There we go.
Alright.
Okay, I was just about to do the same
Man.
thing.
He's already got yours filtered to go to junk, Kevin. Colin Powell was born on April 5th, 1937, in the New York City neighborhood of Harlem. As the son of two Jamaican immigrants, he was raised in the polyglot South Bronx. Because of his upbringing, he did not develop a sense of being a minority. He attended church and was a student at the City College of New York. It was at the City College of New York that he had began his military service after joining the Reserve Officer Training Corps. Colin served 2 tours in Vietnam, where he was wounded twice and received multiple honors for his faithful service. Throughout his military life, he was in a profession that would allow him to go as far as his talents would take him, and for a black man, no other avenue in American society offered so much opportunity. Early in his military career, he was once told, "You're the best black lieutenant I've ever seen," to which he answered, "Thank you very much, sir, but before this is through, I'm going to be the best lieutenant you ever saw. You will not categorize me as the best black lieutenant you ever saw." Colin also said, "Never believe the first thing you hear." Later in his United States Army career, Colin learned who's who, developed a stable of contacts, and was always responsive to a stranger. He refused to put off anyone or ignore any of his soldiers. He wanted each soldier to become an expert in something and a generalist in everything. Colin wanted to build future leaders under his command. He believed his soldiers' endeavors succeeded or failed because of the people involved. Only by attracting the best people will they accomplish great deeds. Colin once said, "The day the soldiers stop bringing you their problems is the day you stop leading them. They have either lost confidence that you can help them or concluded that you do not care. Either case is a failure of leadership." Colin Powell knows a thing or two about project management. On the front lines of business, military, and politics, he conducted speeches and presentations. But it was ultimately the followers who accomplished their mission, or not. Colin was generous with his time and insights. He offered opinions in a down-to-earth and sometimes humorous way, benefiting his description of himself as just a kid from the Bronx. During the late 1980s, while Colin Powell served as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he addressed students at National Defense University on the subject of leadership. He said, "The students are leaders in transition, looking forward to positions as generals, admirals in the United States military, at senior executive levels in the government, or as corporate officers in the private sector." As a respected military leader, Colin Powell stated the following while describing himself. "You will find an open style. You will find me bouncing in. You will find me wanting to talk to field officers. I want to hear the rough edges of all arguments. I don't want to concur things to death and coordinate things to death, so I get a round pebble instead of a stone that has edges on it. I want to hear from you. I want to get all the great ideas that exist throughout the department." Colin Powell's successful military career culminated during the early 1990s. During the early stages of Operation Desert Storm, he told President George Bush, "Mr. President, I wish to God that I could assure you that air power alone could do it, but you can't take that chance. We've got to take the initiative out of the enemy's hands if we are going to go to war." Following his military career retirement in September 1993, Colin Powell was considered witty, erudite, insightful, articulate, and self-depreciating. When Colin Powell declined a presidential run in 1995, Powell declared that running for office was a calling that I do not yet hear. Throughout the late 1990s, Colin Powell wrote his autobiography titled My American Journey, which was published in 1995. With his popularity continuing to gain momentum, he registered as a Republican and gave a speech at the 1996 Republican National Convention. The following year, in 1997, Colin founded America's Promise, an organization whose goal is to help children from all socioeconomic sectors. Then in 2000, Colin campaigned for George W. Bush for the presidential election. When Colin was nominated and unanimously confirmed as Secretary of State in January 2001, he also appeared to be as popular with the American public as Eisenhower was in his time. He rallied America's allies for military action in Afghanistan after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Then as Secretary of State, Colin Powell delivered this message: "We must build a better future even as we deal with the security challenges before us. That is how we'll overcome those challenges, because it is not enough to fight against the negative like terrorism. We must focus on what inspires us, on what brings the good people of the world together. We've got to fight for the positive, for liberty, for freedom, for democracy." In the realm of public policy making, Colin said, "We need a workforce that is truly reflective of modern American society. To achieve that, we must create opportunities for people from diverse backgrounds to prepare for public service careers." As the Secretary of State, Colin Powell had to earn support for America's war on terrorism. After President Bush forcibly overthrew Saddam Hussein, Colin Powell admitted to the United Nations Security Council, "If we had known there were no weapons of mass destruction, there would have been no war." Even though Colin Powell had been the first African American to hold the position of Secretary of State, he resigned his position in 2004. He found in negotiations to always get yourself partially on the side of the other person, understand what they need, and always show respect. No country is unimportant, no person is unimportant, and I think that's the way you should go into a negotiation. He was asked if he considers himself a conservative. Powell said, "Oh, I never talk politics, and I have not been able to find a perfect fit in either of the two existing parties." Colin was mentioned as a possible running mate for the Republican presidential nominee John McCain in 2008, but instead, he endorsed the candidate Barack Obama when he said, "We elected a president who happens to be black, just as I was Secretary of State who happened to be black. We don't, or we shouldn't, color code our national leaders." In 2009, Colin criticized the Obama administration for not providing a vision or focusing on the American economy and new jobs. A Gallup poll conducted in 2003 showed that 18% of black Americans viewed Colin Powell as the most important black leader in the country. In second place was Jesse Jackson at 17%. However, 23% of white Americans that year also viewed Colin Powell as the most important black leader in the country. Colin Powell once told young blacks, "Don't let your blackness, your minority status, be a problem to you. Let it be a problem to somebody else. If you work hard, do the best you can, take advantage of every opportunity that's put in front of you, success will come your way." Powell's leadership philosophy is simple. Leadership is the art of accomplishing more than the science of management says is possible, and effective leaders are made, not born. Leadership is about followership. Leaders put followers in the best possible environment to accomplish a unit mission or organizational mission. It works in the Army, it works in the university, it works in any endeavor in the world where humans come together to achieve a purpose. Leadership and followership are completely enmeshed. It ain't you who gets it done, it's the troops who get it done. There's also no unimportant person in an organization. You have to invest in followers and give them what they need to get the job done. The best leaders are those who can communicate upward the fears and desires of their subordinates and are willing to fight for what is needed. If not, the organization will weaken and crumble. Happiness cannot be achieved solely by amassing possessions or power. Real happiness is a byproduct of serving others. Colin Powell published several books in his life. He has coined several generic leadership phrases that are often cited and used today. A couple include, "Trust is the essence of leadership. Trying to get everyone to like you is a sign of mediocrity. And don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision." As one of the most influential leaders of the 21st century, Colin Powell has created his 13 rules of leadership. Rule 1. It ain't as bad as you think. It'll look better in the morning. Rule number 2. Get mad, then get over it. Rule 3. Avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. Rule number 4. It can be done. Rule 5. Be careful whom you choose. Rule number 6. Don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. Rule number 7. You can't make someone else's decisions. You shouldn't let someone else make yours. Rule 8. Inspect small things. Rule 9. Share credit. Rule 10. Remain calm. Be kind. Rule 11. Have a vision. Be demanding. Rule 12. Don't take counsel of your fears and naysayers. Rule number 13. Perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. Colin Powell has been an inspiration to not only African Americans, but to everyone. He demonstrated throughout his life some of the absolute best traits a leader can have. He also believed if people find work they love, display passion, dedication, and hard work, success and recognition will follow. Colin Powell knows the power of language to inspire, motivate, and educate his followers to inspire and transform them into leaders of tomorrow.
Okay, now the hardest part of the assignment. Tell me with reality, with your eyes being clear, not with you mixing your labor with it and then thinking it's the best thing ever. What was wrong with it?
I could have, when it comes to my narration, fluctuated my voice a little bit more smoothly throughout.
That wasn't bad.
Had a little bit less of a monotone.
And you stumbled over one, maybe two words that I heard. So that wasn't bad. That's not that big of a thing. Tell me what was wrong with it. This is important.
It wasn't necessarily in total chronological order.
Okay, so?
There were a couple of pictures that were in there that had the wrong President Bush.
Okay, I didn't catch that, but that's important to sort out. So here's the thing, I'm gonna let you tell me what's wrong, and if you can tell me and identify it, I'll let you fix it and improve your grade. Fair enough?
Okay.
What else is wrong?
Well, the references are listed at the end. I don't think that's a problem unless.
That's not a problem, I'd like them to be larger though, so that you can actually
Yeah.
read them. I mean, you might have to flash more in order to do that, but everything else looked good. You didn't say class project of, which I told you not to do, right? Okay, good. What else?
What are we missing?
If you identify things, we can fix them.
Right.
By the way, content-wise, the only thing I saw was that you made it look like Powell was just all heartbroken about things and left because of screwing up with
The Secretary of State.
yeah, Secretary of State. You made it look a little bit too gloomy, and I don't think that's quite what happened. I mean, he was just tired.
Like the picture?
No, the way that you described it.
Oh.
Right, that's the only thing content-wise that I would say. Now, tell me about pictures. Did the pictures always match what you were saying? No, they didn't. There are a few places where I was sitting there going, why are you showing me that when you're talking about this? Talking about him being at war and then you're having a picture of him in a suit or something, or, you know what I'm saying? What else?
Well, we had so many pictures that we could choose from, and you have to, there's only so many available.
I
that we can-
understand
that
that.
we get, so I'm trying to think.
The public domain is.
That was,
Yeah,
that was
so?
tough,
No, I believe it's tough.
so.
I'm trying to help you.
I
I'm
know, I
not
know.
criticizing for the sake of criticizing, I'm trying to help you improve this, because, I mean, you're almost to the place where I wanna send this to my students for the next semester. So if you, with some minor tweaks, I wanna send it to them. Cause it's pretty good.
So a few of the pictures need to be.
A few of the
switched
pictures
around.
don't quite fit with what you're talking about. And that just might mean, Kevin, what do you do this on?
Premiere Pro.
Premiere Pro,
It's
is
a
that,
soft- it's
is
a
that
software.
a Microsoft Word? Or
Adobe.
Adobe, on PC or Mac or what?
I think it can be on both.
You can be on both?
I have
Okay,
PC.
so you're just, is it very similar, I would imagine, to what would it be on here, where you're just moving a picture up and?
It's like a more, it's like iMovie.
You know, like iMovie, right, you can slide it and make it a little bit longer, a little shorter?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
a little more sophisticated.
A little more sophisticated.
But it's like iMovie.
But that's good. Okay, so sometimes, maybe it's just moving a picture a little bit, letting it stay a little longer, a little shorter. Tell me about the pictures. Was there movement? Was there enough movement, too much movement, too little movement?
I like the movement.
You like the movement?
I like the
There's a lot of
movement because at least for me, it was enough to draw me in a little bit to think, okay, what's it about the show? Is it moves out or zones out?
Was there too much of, who's it gonna be?
Okay.
Was there a little bit too much of that? When you're watching Ken Burns, you don't see too much of peekaboo, right? You see a little bit more of that kind of thing, right? So a little bit more side. There was just it was a little bit too distracting. How much? When's his face going to be there? Kind of stuff. And in some places, it felt to me. You tell me how you saw it. Felt to me like it was a little too fast. In some places, the movement you're trying to create this weird illusion of that there's, right? But it just felt a little bit too fast in some places. That's my observation. Maybe you see it differently. What do you think?
I know there was one part where you were talking about where, I know at least one where you kind of moved off real quick.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like you're catching up with something.
That beginning in in Harlem, was it Harlem? Pretty Grove.
Yeah.
That beginning was beautiful, right? The cityscape, and then we're looking at the city of New York, but there's too much on personal profiles that's just like, and then another one, right? I mean,
So
if
what
you're
would
talking,
you would recommend?
if you're talking
side
about
to side?
people, you're dealing with side to side, if the person's important in that picture, right? It's a little bit less, sometimes you can do that, like the books, you know, you're talking about the different waves of books, I mean, you can do that how you like, but that seemed to come in nicely, go ahead.
Would you rather some of them be still,
Some could be still, depending.
or what about like the photo of, say, Bush and?
Or if you had, let's say you had the books about him side by side, and you panned across that would be just as fine as going up and down, right? But it's going up along the face where I can't tell who's it gonna be, oh, that's Powell and Bush, right? I mean, it's, right?
So, you like
By the way, you've done a great job taking something that you had zero experience with and trying to put together. So I'm not condemning, I'm trying to tweak.
This guy is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to tweak, I'm trying to help you.
So you
Anything
like,
else?
You like a side to side more so than a top to bottom, is that what I'm hearing?
For some of the profiles.
Depends.
It's
because
not,
really
I
Well,
like,
for all of them, right?
Well-
it's not I like, it's I don't want people to be distracted by.
Okay.
Do you see the difference?
Maybe there can be like, cause I agree
There
that
could
the
be-
shot of New York is really nice, cause like set a location.
Yeah, that was
Maybe if
beautiful.
we're talking about the military, like show military base.
I
instead
like
of-
the map.
Show military base, the map was beautiful. Remember how the map came down and then to his person? That worked really well. But if you just keep doing this repetitive it just doesn't flow.
Yeah, I have a couple
How would
pictures of
you,
a
how would you
map
feel
thing.
when we do the pictures with Colin Powell or somebody else such as a president? If it started as zoomed in on him and then just slowly panned over and then showed the other person?
Yeah, I mean, those could work. You just need to give it a little bit, there's just too much of this.
Take a little bit of the mystery out
Now,
of
what
it.
was the one piece of content that you said the?
The one thing was it sounded just too much like you were saying he stepped down
When he
just
left
because of what happened there, where it wasn't, I don't think that's really a
Would you
legitimate thing.
recommend-
Now, there were other things that you didn't say that I would have said, but you didn't say anything wrong, right? I mean, it's not like you left out like what he did in Vietnam and that he, didn't want to serve in staff jobs, but just kept getting sucked into staff jobs. Well, it turned out that those staff jobs is what made him where he became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. What does a military man want? Command, right? And he just kept getting all these staff jobs. This happened to Eisenhower too. It was almost a similar thing 50 years later, the way that their progression went.
They got him ready for it.
Yeah, it did, get him ready for it. So you didn't talk about that, but that's okay, because that's not, what you say is gonna be different than what I'll say, but it was still
There's
really
some
good
nice
stuff.
to
Yeah, there was
do.
great stuff.
Yeah.
So aesthetically, some things maybe need to slow, or I don't know. It's up to you how you want to do that, but there was just a distracting amount of this kind of thing repetitively.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What else? You're not in trouble, I'm trying to help you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Wounds from a friend can be trusted.
I think the video could be better if we integrated like leadership more into like his life, his biography. Like some of it is his biography.
I'm fine with the content of it. Could you use, to break it up a little bit, maybe if you had quotations that would magically appear? Oh, by the way, the quotations, the 13 quotes thing, the 13 things, right? That came up, that was nice, right? It kind of faded out and then read them. Maybe in some other places to break it up, if you put quotations like that in there. The music on that one was too loud. When we got to that part, the music was a little overbearing.
13 rules.
For the 13, not rules, it was 13 rules?
13,
Yeah,
it's
13
Yeah, 13 rules. Go ahead, you got something?
I don't know if you guys could find this, but maybe like an actual clip of his speech, because you mentioned several of his speeches and things that he's quoted. I don't know if that would be publicly available or not, but.
Yeah, that's an open question, and a couple of those would really break that up as well. But I'm not asking necessarily to do that. But if you could put, say, quotes in there.
Just changing
to-
some of the pictures to quotes.
Yeah, yeah,
Changing
right.
the-
There are some very easy ways that you could tweak this, where this can go from, you got a really good paper tried to convert into a movie to this really looks professional. You're very close. I mean, you got some good stuff here. And I'm not worried about that you don't cover the same thing that I did. That's okay. That's neither here nor there. Okay, anything else?
I think you guys did a phenomenal job.
I think you're almost there. You did a really good job putting a lot of these pieces in place, and there are small tweaks that can just make this thing shine.
Yeah.
And so I will withhold on the grade until you send me whatever final thing you want to send me with the thing, so that you can maximize it.
When do you want it by?
Sooner beats later, but I mean before finals. Okay, so we just give you a little time to tweak and polish and do whatever you can.
So that's 2 weeks from
Yeah,
today.
About 2 weeks. I don't know how laborious this is. or
No,
how much labor
that's
it is.
good.
I don't know.
Maybe we can make some tweaks as much as possible, send it to you, and then, because if you.
I'll be happy to respond
Yeah.
to it if I still see stuff.
Yeah.
Is the font okay? Is
I
it
don't think the
even
font was bad. Do you think the font was
bold,
bad?
or Does it?
The font didn't bother me.
It's just mainly those panning.
The panning was just getting distracting, and the music at the 13 was bothering me. I like the music choices in other places. That was pretty
Yeah.
good. You were thinking,
Yeah.
right? The research that you did was really good. Went into it. I mean, I like the theme that you gave. That everyone's no one's unimportant. Was that it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, it's saying on many levels. Now, just getting that last little aesthetic bit. Now, what have you noticed about this and about pretty much everything else we've done all semester?
About this project?
Not just about this project, what we just did now, and about pretty much everything else we did all semester. Did you not quite get things right and say, oh, you should have gotten this? I mean, why didn't you do this? No, what we do.
We're thankful of the things we got right, and we talked about what we could do
Yeah,
better.
and then if we can have an honest discussion about what things are, we've improved. Every time we've improved, right?
Right.
Well, we can still do the same thing.
Focus on.
But you
seeking
have to,
opportunities.
be willing to have that discussion and be willing to change and improve.
Constructive
And that's on both sides.
Yeah.
That's on my side as
Yeah.
well as your
Yeah.
side. You have to be willing to have that discussion. Okay? So there's a lesson even in that. Okay, tell me about
Baseball?
what you got. Yeah,
Did you want to pull that up?
sure. Did you send me something
Yes, sir.
just now?
No, I can.
What am I looking for?
Oh,
this?
this is your baseball cards.
This?
Yes, sir.
Maybe we could do.
So if you look at it, we have the class roster.
Uh-huh.
It's where, the only place you have to add on this paper is here.
So if I add the roster right there.
Yep, so you would add the first and last name, that's it.
Uh-huh.
Everything else is formula.
Okay.
So on this roster, we went ahead and had where we have averages per student. So I have team A, student 1 is me, and then over here my identifier is team A, S1, which you did that. And when I go
What is
to-
S1, 2, 3, 4?
So that's student 1, student 2, student 3. I had to use that so when you change the name, it's going to automatically, everything will go to that person's name rather than, I needed that as an identifier to pull the data.
Okay.
So it has the averages that I pulled from the team sheets.
Okay.
And I can't really see it all, but it has, so my information, I was on the 319, 325, 48, and I went through and I graded myself.
Mm-hmm.
It pulled it into the response.
And it's in chronological order. The week numbers aren't in order because we were doing them. A lot of this was like
Yeah.
testing and stuff too.
Okay.
Yeah, so it pulled it to here. I set up for, let's see, on the student sheets. I set it up where on the student sheets, it's gonna pull based on, it's gonna match from the form response sheet, which is this, and it's gonna match B.
So this is the form response sheet that comes from the form
Yeah,
itself?
this is the
Yes.
master sheet, right, John?
Okay, and where
Right
does
here.
it go? It just goes to the tabs or goes to another sheet?
It will go, no, to the tabs.
To the tabs. So if somebody were to go and change something maliciously in the form response, it would change everything?
If they changed it in here,
Yeah.
like I can delete all of that.
The
right?
student probably wouldn't be seeing this, right, John?
This would be for you,
But what
right?
does the student see?
The student would only be, I can edit, I can go from here,
That's how they would be taking
but
it.
the student
The
would.
student takes it here, right?
No, well, they're gonna go from,
This,
this is what they would see,
that's what they see.
right?
And then on the back end, I was going to make that available, but they're not going to, I can't make that available because it's in the same sheet, right?
I wouldn't make that available to the student. I would have it where it would, they could go, you could send, do whatever, send the, hey, the class needs to do these,
Uh-huh.
and then, and you only have to do it once,
Okay,
right? And then they would take them each, however many
You'd
times.
say
you
take
do
it this week,
uh-huh,
and then they would take this.
right. And then I'm aggregating that, but I can't make it as a public thing.
You're talking about the spreadsheet with the results.
Correct.
I mean, I can change that, or you can have it wherever you want, real easy. I mean, it's now that we know how to do it, it's a very
Yeah,
simple
so the only thing
process.
that's, I mean, you aggregated it well, that's not the issue. The issue is, if I wanted to have it as a public thing where everybody could see each other's data, I don't know that I wanna do that or not, but how would I pump that into another spreadsheet where there's not the original text?
Can't you convert a Google Sheet into a spreadsheet and just email it?
You can.
And then you could delete the tab?
Yes, but then I have to do that. You understand what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
mean, if I want them to see that every week,
Because I
that's
guess
an
it was-
extra step
or
for
at
me
least
to
my
do.
understanding is you would just show it on the board and you just would.
Okay,
be the
so
one to
Yeah.
track
all I
it.
need to do then is just create a sheet that feeds off of that sheet, so that's not all that far out.
Hold on, what are you planning to send to the
To
students?
just make it available so that they can see where they are relative to others. The reason is,
Your results or
Oh.
everyone's results?
well, everyone's, because the reason is, I'm toying with it, I don't know exactly how I want to have that available. But if it's everyone's, then if they're saying, well, I got feedback from my team that I need to work on listening. And if that's not it, then your team is seeing you saying what's not really
Which one?
what you need to work on.
Where should we-
I don't know whether I wanna do that or if I just wanna keep it tight. But what I can do is I can just create another sheet that feeds directly off that whatever. What's that?
So within the Google form, this is messy because there's a lot of results in here from it being tested. But on the Google form, like the admin side of it, you see the questions and then you have this response section.
Yeah.
So you can see it in a pie chart. I don't know if that's helpful to send out.
I don't know.
When you're editing the form, yeah, there's two tabs. One says questions and one says, what does it say, responses?
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking at now.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
But
is-
yeah, only on the admin
Results of-
side, like she said.
Yeah, it's just that extra step that I may have to do, but I don't know if I'm gonna actually wanna do that. Okay.
But I mean, because you can set this up to email certain things also.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Let's see. Because the way I set mine up is a little different.
That's fine, you've aggregated it, I just need to be able to, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this or not, be able to copy that data into another spreadsheet where they can't monkey with the beginning data.
I think you can.
Does that
You
make
can-
sense?
yeah, oh, that,
Yeah.
I can just change what it feeds to. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a,
That's it.
Like the
That's the only
averages.
thing that I'm after.
yeah.
Yeah, so the original form, so theoretically, this would go from the form to a spreadsheet that contains it, which would then be reflected on a third one that they can't touch the original material.
So basically,
So
if you
instead
go
of
back to
tabs,
the Google sheet, the master file, the master tab
yes,
is what you
it's
don't
its
want
own
them to
set.
see.
Yeah, it's
All
their
the
own-
individual tabs you want them to see.
Correct.
So if we
Which
could
is a pretty
extract
simple
that
fix.
master, or extract the individuals.
Yeah,
to a
which is a
new-
pretty simple change.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, that's great. We have all the stuff that where I'm after, and I can pump a person's name in. I still don't quite understand the A and S1, S2, S3, S4, but that's fine
So that, the reason you have to do that is because it's identifier.
for the tab.
Yep, and I'm
Yeah.
actually, we started writing, where it's gonna explain it.
Yeah, and that's fine,
That's
but that's
pictures.
the only change that I'm after, because I'm not sure that I want everybody to be able to access the thing that would change everything.
Right.
That way, they can't just go to the spreadsheet and easily change something about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
Even if it's your own thing, I
Yeah.
want, I still
I
want to
don't like
separate.
my result.
Yeah, I later on, I go back and I retype something.
Yeah, and
Right.
this is, all I have to do is feed this to a different one.
Yeah, and that's it. Otherwise, that's great. Go ahead.
And- Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, in the Google Docs too, it tracks all changes. So if you.
But I don't want to have to chase that down.
I know, well, it'll tell you right at the top if someone edits it,
Okay.
but, yeah.
But otherwise, that's great. That's what I'm looking
So
for.
that
And
meets your
I think that's what I'm gonna
requirements.
do next semester, is give out like every other week, have them, tell me developmentally, what do you need to work on, and just make that as an available thing. And frame it very upfront. Go ahead and sit down, guys. And up, before you were standing up.
Oh,
And up front, it's weird. Up front, say, look, this is developmental, this is not, because I have somebody in another class right now, hey, are we able to grade people on what they didn't do in our groups? I hate that. Like that it's gotten like that,
They're gonna
aren't you
find a way to
adults?
shoot 'em.
Right, so instead of that, I wanna frame it right up front. Look, this is developmental, tell us what you wanna work on, and then we have a mechanism to help you get there with your team. They should be helping you work on those things a lot, but so a lot of it depends on how it's framed. Okay, so that's fine. That one tweak and we're done,
Okay.
right? So it goes from the form to one spreadsheet, and then from the other spreadsheet to all that other stuff.
Okay.
Okay, is that it? Good, and you'll get full credit for that. And we're done. No other additional changes. I'm not worried about other changing of stuff. Okay, good? Okay, so we have to wrap up, and I have just a little bit left here to wrap up. And I got a lot of tabs open, don't I?
Yes.
No. Okay. Did we finish Shackleton? I don't think we did,
No.
Close.
right? We're getting close.
But every time I think he gets close.
Yeah, that is true.
And something else happens.
No, that's not the endurance. Where? What? Where'd it go? Okay, hold on.